Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
As it has been from 1619, when the first enslaved Africans came ashore at Jamestown Settlement, through the election of Barack Obama and now, the Black Church has been an integral part of the struggle, survival, and triumphs of the African Americans in North America, and indeed throughout the diaspora. Orchard Street Church tells a powerful story, interpreting the role of the African American church in American history. The church and our belief in God gave us faith to make a way out of no way.
Clementa Pinckney found that grace.
Religion played a huge role in the free and enslaved population of Baltimore City. Like I said, three of primary religious foundations were founded here in the city, founded here, or had a prevalent role in the formation of these religions. Religion was everything. The 4 HBCUs came out of somewhat religious institutions. First, they were Sharp Street, which was United Methodist. Then when the AME Church came into play, Bethel AME was founded like early 1800s, maybe as late, maybe 1813. Then, a lot of people don't know this, the Oblate Sisters of Haiti came here after the Haitian Revolution. Mother Mary Lang and the Oblate Sisters were here, like I said, after the Haitian Revolution. That was like 1797, 98. So we had three religions that were basically for Black people. And out of these churches came all the other Catholic, Methodist, AME churches in Baltimore City. Sharp Street is the mother for Orchard Street United Methodist Church.
The Orchard Street story begins with Truman Pratt. Truman Pratt was born into slavery in March 1775. Some sources claim that he was owned by then Maryland Governor John Eager Howard, passed on his property to John Eager Jr., and eventually to a Mr. Bryce. Truman, determined to be a free man, escaped slavery and fled to Boston. Returning to Baltimore in 1820, he negotiated his freedom from Mr. Bryce. Truman, along with two other freed Black men, Cyrus Moore and Basil Hall, together created a religious place of worship for African Americans on Baltimore's west side. Leasing the grounds on Orchard Street and Eller's Alley, a church was built. This humble, one-story building was built in 1839 at night by the enslaved and freed men working side by side with women holding lanterns. Truman Pratt, fondly called Father Pratt, remained a member of the church until his death in 1877. The elder trustee was still healthy and active with the institution, despite being totally blind and over 100 years old by that time. Orchard Street Church was more than a church. It became one of the most important and significant civic institutions for African Americans in the city. Throughout the rest of the century, Orchard Street would host the Washington Methodist Episcopal Conference, reunions of United States colored troops, as well as various schools and college commencements. Orchard Street Church is the oldest standing structure built by slaves and freed men for African Americans in the city of Baltimore.
I am the sixth great-grandson of Reverend Samuel Green Sr., who was born on Maryland's Eastern Shore, originally enslaved there, and then was able to purchase his freedom along with that of his wife. And he had two children, my fifth great-grandfather, Sam Green Jr., and his daughter, my fifth great aunt, Sarah Green, and they were enslaved by two other different slave owners. And so his attempt was to, free his children and to purchase their freedom. He was unsuccessful in doing that only because the respective slave masters would not sell him, if you will, his children. And so that really initiated his sort of personal involvement with the Underground Railroad experience. And Reverend Samuel Green was sort of caught in the mix of this stampede of slaves, these runaways. And of course, there was thoughts that Harriet Tubman was involved with that. And so when they entered the home of Reverend Samuel Green Sr., they found him in possession of the letters that his son had wrote back to him from Canada. So now they have evidence that he, assisted his son, and he was assisted by Harriet Tubman and William Still. And then they find him in possession of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin book, which was an anti-slavery publication in 1857. So they arrest him. Following his release from prison, he began working on a long deferred dream, which was the establishment of a school that would train young men in the ministry. And so he worked with four other colleagues who were formerly enslaved and from Maryland's Eastern Shore to start a committee initially on religious education. And that committee was then formed into the Centenary Biblical Institute of 1867, which we now refer to as Morgan State University. And all of that was birthed out of the Sharp Street Church, which was located downtown Baltimore, which was affiliated with the Orchard Street Church, the Centennial Church, which is also where Frederick Douglass had associations on Dallas Street. And so his connections with Orchard Street, Reverend Samuel Green's connections with Orchard Street, became in the latter years post-emancipation. When he returned to Maryland, he did not go back to the Eastern Shore. He actually settled here in Baltimore City, and he took sort of a congregational residency at the Orchard Street Church and was a member there until he passed on February 28th, 1877.
The abolitionist movement, led by Frederick Douglass, was lifting its voice and expanding in Baltimore. Orchard Street Church was a major part of that chorus of voices. The church, a station in the Underground Railroad, played a very significant role. Its location was of particular strategic importance. It was located near the Pratt Street slave auction and the harbor, where the enslaved were sold directly from ships. With the railways near, the tunnels lying under streets aided many of the enslaved to make their way to freedom. In 1837, Samuel Green Jr., son of Orchard Street future member Samuel Green, received his instruction on escaping from Harriet Tubman. The Orchard Street Church depicts the spirits of the persistence of Harriet Tubman and many freedom seekers. It connects civic engagement and the struggle for freedom.
Cause of gone trouble.
The church, first known as Orchard Chapel and later Metropolitan Methodist Episcopal Church, was rebuilt 3 times to accommodate the growing members. Many of Baltimore's prominent African Americans were members of the church. Orchard Street Church could boast of its distinguished members like James H. Harris, a Civil War Congressional Medal of Honor winner. Harry S. Cumming, a son of Orchard Street, became the first African American on the Baltimore City Council. Samuel Green, a member, returned to Baltimore after his incarceration and was instrumental in the founding of Morgan State University. In 1882, architect Frank E. Davis was commissioned to build a new church on this site. The Neo-Romanesque church became the jewel of the community. Orchard Street Church described an honor to the colored race, a foremost colored house of worship. Orchard Street Church is a national treasure, its beauty evident by stained glass windows, oculus windows, high vaulted ceilings, elm chair railings, and arch beams. Orchard Street was an inspirational and aspirational meeting place for freedom's struggle.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. I tell y'all it's so happy day.
What's your earliest age of, being in Orchard Street Church?
Yeah, well, I was born. I was born there. I mean, I was a baby from Orchard Street.
How did your family happen to start going to Orchard Street?
They started when they were children.
Oh, okay.
My father
okay.
did, and my mother did,
Okay.
and my grandmother and grandfather.
Okay. All right. Did you all live near the church?
Yeah.
And how did you get there?
Walk.
Oh, you walked. Okay. All right. You
I
remember
was
what?
at 744 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's where I was born.
Oh, you was born.
744.
744 Pennsylvania Avenue. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you all walked from there
Yeah.
to Orchard Street.
Yeah.
And you say your parents and your grandparents and your
My
great
mother,
grandparents, they all went to that church.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
During the post-Civil War era, African American churches served as civil institutions for the community. Orchard Street Church was a leader in that role in Baltimore, providing jobs, training, and other services for the newly freed enslaved. Later, hosting conventions, graduations, the Colored Sunday School Union, commencement for the Nurses Training School of Providence Hospital, and supporting Baltimore's Black physicians. The church served as a premier social and civic institution in health and education for African Americans in Baltimore.
I think all my life I have known of the building known as Orchard Street. And as I got older, I got curious. I looked up some of the history of it and learned that it was alleged to be part of the Underground Railroad. And from there, just kind of interested me as a history buff, interested me in looking at how it happened, its role in everything that was going on. Finding out that the church, the original church, was built by slaves, working after hours and creating what essentially at the time was a major accomplishment in Baltimore City. When I started looking at it seriously in the 1980s, finding that the building was essentially falling apart, had been abandoned for years by the church, and just finding that that nobody was looking after it, and nobody was taking care of it. I thought that the fact that the Urban League wanted to be a part of this project was serendipitous. I mean, the mission of the Urban League and the mission of the original building, the church, built by slaves, and as part of the Underground Railroad, was something that just sort of all came together. And I thought that it was something that ought to be accomplished. And so this was in the mid-1980s. We began to put together the financing that was necessary in order to begin to turn that building around for the Urban League. I think it's very important that Orchard Street Church be maintained for the future, so that young people will be able to see how things were the building's 150 years old now. It's an opportunity, I think, for them to be able to see what it was. And we've had some great events in the building over time, including a major conference in 1995, where the Secretary of HUD and others came, all the elected officials came and took a look at what was going on in Baltimore City. But they did it from the headquarters of the Baltimore Urban League at Orchard Street Church. Very important.
The Orchard Street Church and its grounds are a significant artifact of architecture that speaks to our African American experience both in race, place, and time. And it is important that we preserve the legacy of the Orchard Street Church, which is uniquely intertwined with the spirit of Black activism. It is very important that we understand that embodied in the culture of the Orchard Street Church is a heritage of the Underground Railroad's experience, the early African Methodist Church, our early Black institutions, businessmen and philanthropists, and the whole spirit of the community activism is all intertwined in the legacy of the very bricks and mortar at the Orchard Street Church.
Absolutely, I feel there's a kinship between Greater Baltimore Urban League and Orchard Street Church. Orchard Street Church, as you know, was built by Blacks for Blacks to provide support and social services to level the playing field for African Americans in Baltimore City. And I feel that the missions, kind of marry in regards to the way that the Orchard Street Church was founded and built, as well as the mission of Greater Baltimore Urban League to ensure that we provide services to marginalized communities and ensure that they have the sustainability to provide for their families and their communities. The purpose for Greater Baltimore Urban League in moving into Orchard Street Church was to sustain this church because it was vacant for so long. And we continue to provide such services to all of our neighbors here in Baltimore City and throughout the Greater Baltimore region.
When the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. We'll cry glory. Oh, glory, we'll cry glory. Oh, glory.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon. Formed against, yes, glory is destined. Every day, women and men become legends. Since they go against our skin, become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is just a position in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. Once I die, the spirit is revisiting us. Truly living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down and we stand up. Shots be on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours.